welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to try to pair what I think could be a really nice match here in the rainbow holographic paper and the mystical water stamp. I don't know, I haven't really thought about it before, but I thought about doing some kind of like magical little pools or something like that of water, and I don't know, this came to mind. With this kind of loud paper, very loud surface, kind of muting some of the properties of it, for me are kind of important. Otherwise, it just absolutely dominates. I mean, no matter what you do, it's going to dominate the overall scene. But you don't want it to just pound every other element in the scene into submission. Okay, it's going to be the star of the show no matter what you do, though. Um, you know, aside from just burying it, completely where you can't see it all. But okay, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to. Okay, this is my concept right here. This is the way I kind of conceive of certain things. A lot of times it's just I start stamping with a certain stamp. It might have a general type of, I might have a general notion in mind, but this one right here, I plan on doing some light rays coming out of there, like, something on the horizon or whatnot, okay? So, the light rays will come from about right here, okay? So I'm going to designate that with a little paint pen dot, okay? This is just a little silver pen. Okay, and then this will be underneath it. Okay, then we'll have some of these ripples down here. Okay, so I'm just composing around the main image. I plan on probably using some other things in here, but I'm not really sure yet. Maybe this one right here, the boulders with the lichen, okay? So I'll tell you what, so this is what this is going to look like. We're going to have some light beams coming out like this, okay? And we'll have it kind of going down around right like so. I'll kind of put a dot there to designate kind of where the rocks are going to be. All right, so it's this little triangle right in here. All right. Now I don't kind of scheme or whatever, devise things too much in advance like this, but we are dealing with kind of a different paper here, so a unique paper. So let's say these boulders are going to be roughly around like so. So this area right here, I'm going to block out with white. Then we're going to have some light beams coming up in here. And for the rocks and the shoreline right in here, I might put some white block out paint. I say paint, I'm talking about ink in the form of some Brilliance white pigment ink, okay? The Brilliance because it just simply dries nicely for me on unconventional surfaces. All right, now, I'm going to tell you what. Let's start off with the rays first. You can kind of start off with anything. All right, so I'm just going to start adding some of these rays down like so. I like to have some of my rays in front of the trays a lot of times, but by the time you stamp this in black, yeah, I could wait for it to dry overnight, and it would probably dry just fine enough for me to apply white over the top of it, but I don't know, I don't know. I like to get my scenes done while I'm working on them. I usually don't like to kind of wait, especially like a day or something like that for them to dry to add on some additional touches. All right, so putting this down on this paper right here, I'm kind of smashing some of those paint pen dots because they are not dry, but I'm not worried about that because, those dots are just kind of a reference point for me. And by the time I add everything else on here, it's not going to be much of a, if any, a big deal at all, okay? They're just kind of reference points for me to know where I am within that design right there. I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll show you why I have laid those out like so. Okay, so see this right here? See my white block outs like that? It blocks out a lot of the paper so that we don't see that, that rainbow type of look. We want the rainbow down here, but like I said, if it's just everywhere, it overwhelms, okay? Which is kind of, I mean, that's what you want. You can't, you don't want it to be, a paper like this isn't designed for subtlety, but you can make other areas more subtle by simply just blocking it out, okay? So you want it kind of loud because you can make it quieter, but you can't necessarily make a quiet, paper that loud, so I don't know, that's just my overall thoughts on the matter. It took me a while to kind of figure out how to use this paper because I didn't really use brilliance inks, and I'm not, someone that uses a lot of like stays on or something of that sort. I like to kind of manipulate things and play around with different tones and whatnot, shadows and lighting. I like to blend my colors, and the brilliance inks on something like a glossy cardstock or something of that sort. Sometimes it almost dried too fast, so I didn't really use a lot of it in the past, just because of that drying factor. But when you use it on a material like this, it dries a little bit slower because the paper is more sealed off than your cardstock, clay-coated cardstock. Alright, so just kind of make these rays a little bit irregular, kind of have them thinner, some of them are a little bit lighter. I don't know, I made these ones fairly opaque. But, okay, so this will be my source of light. These are blotched, okay? I have fingerprints in there. If you look real close, see, I've blotched them and everything like that. I'm not worried about that. I got my fingers, my pen marks down here are all smeared because it wasn't dry. But again, I don't worry about that type of thing on something like this. When I'm doing these backgrounds like this, by the time you stamp all your images over the top of it, then you do a little bit more toning in, things don't have to be exacting and without kind of flaw. All those types of things, I think, add up to make the scene kind of a little bit more natural and kind of graceful, maybe, instead of so exacting and sharp and, I don't know, precise, maybe. Things are a little more mellow. Okay, so see, that being said, what I'm doing is I'm kind of going into these beams here and I'm making them a little bit more, I don't know, softer, a little bit less harsh in terms of that mask that we used in the form of just a piece of paper. Okay, so going in here and following down where some of these rocks are going to be. I don't necessarily want my rocks to be all, I don't know, kind of rainbow colored. I want the colors to be kind of within the sky and whatnot. So again, this is what this blocking out provides. Blocking out the paper in those areas. Okay, so this won't just be the only thing we do here. The white will serve its purpose, but a lot of the work we're going to be doing on here will be done with the with black. Okay, this is one of the really fun things to do, because the colors are already built into your scene right here. We don't have to do very much, in terms of adding color. Now, I haven't experimented around with things like metallics and things like that. Silver inks and whatnot over here. Maybe we can block off with silver ink instead of just white. But we'll play around with that when the time comes. Okay, so now I'm going to add some black into that, and we'll block out with some black. Okay, now I don't plan on blocking out every little thing here, but we'll block off some of it, and we'll have some of that rainbow kind of peeking through, okay? Alright, so I'm sure some of this black will be mixing with some of the white that's already been applied. And you don't have to have this even either. I kind of like it a little bit more irregular, just for some variation, okay? Alright, so that's what that looks like. See that right there? I don't know, maybe I applied too much, but I can go right back in over the top of that with some white just to kind of blend it in a little bit, okay? So now I'm kind of I'm filling in, I did the positive space, now I'm filling in with some negative space here. And we'll make this one a little bit lighter maybe, you know, just so we get some of that rainbow showing through. If you ever, you know, apply too much ink, this ink isn't so wet where you can't just kind of go back into it and wipe some of it off, okay? So I can still do that if I don't like it in some of the areas, or in a lot of the areas. It's, you know, it's just totally up to you. Okay, let's kind of taper that one a little bit. Let's have a little bit of that foil showing through over there. All right. Now, I have that image I'm going to be stamping in here in the form of the palm Cove, so I'm kind of uncertain where that's going to go exactly right now. I mean, I could keep referencing it, you know, and check it out, but that being said, I'm just going to go a little bit lighter right there, okay? I might be taking off too much in the sky, or blocking out. I do want the emphasis, though, to be, you know, on the water. Okay. Alright. That looks weird, doesn't it? Alright, let's go in with this. And just like I did with white, and I came back in there and kind of free-handed some of it, coming in here with the black and bringing some of this into it, just to kind of mellow things out a touch. Alright, let's take a reference. Let's go like this. Alright. What I found with doing something like this, it's good to kind of oscillate things. What you do is you apply some of one ink, then you apply the other, and then you go back to the other. And then, you know, you just keep kind of flip-flopping kind of that back and forth. Okay, let's see. Let's go around, and I'm going to kind of create a little bit of a vignette around the edges here. I can do this possibly when, or after I stamp my imagery as well. But, you know, I don't know, I'd like to kind of get a little bit of a head start to just kind of give me the gist of the overall kind of lighting scheme. Now, I hardly ever work like this. If I'm doing it on glossy cardstock or something like this, I don't work like this, but I like to position my stamps, and then I know exactly where they're going to go, but this is a little bit of a it's kind of like blind um, kind of lighting placement right now, because I don't know exactly where things are going to go until I stamp them out. I mean, I can have a decent idea, but it's never going to be that great. Okay, let's go back to the white, all right? These things always look really strange to me. In the scene that I did the other day, like this thing, I don't know, that kind of lighting scheme in the background looked a mess, you know, to me when I was doing it. But like I said, by the time you kind of stamp everything in there and I don't know, place things, then you know, do some shading on the designs and whatnot, add more shadows, it all kind of comes together. So I don't know. Even for me, you know, I could, you know, a lot of times I'm thinking, I don't know, you know, where this is going to go. I don't think about that too much because, you know, to me it's just more a matter of, you know, kind of saying, all right, this doesn't look great right now, but let's just see where it goes. It's not like, oh my God, this isn't coming out. I try to avoid that type of thought and just kind of focus in on the process of, you know, creating something, just seeing where it goes. You know, if it doesn't come out, you know, it's not the end of the world. It might be the end of that piece of paper, I don't know, but, you know, that's no big deal. It was kind of fun. You know, it was a fun process to get, you know, to try it. So things are fun for me, even if they don't really kind of work out, because it's just kind of a process of, you know, we're stamping, we're having, you know, enjoying our time in exploration. Not every experiment comes out exactly the way people think, you know, but chances are, if something doesn't work out, a lot of times you learn more from that than the successes. I want a success every time, sure, just like anyone else, but if I don't get it, then, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, what you learned from the process. All right, so I'm just adding some kind of sharper additions back to it. Remember, we used the mask, we went to black, freehand, going back to this. All right, so let's see. Holding this up, yeah, I got a little bit of that showing through there. See that? Yeah, some of that, but it's mostly down here. Okay, so the ledge will go right down in here. So I'm adding that block out of that. I don't want too much of that color in my ledge, or the boulders with lichen. We could use ledge too. This looks really sloppy, okay? It's sloppy goodness, though. It's really fun. Alright, so see this? This is what this looks like right now. I got some of that kind of showing through, but we might be doing some blackout on that. Okay, so let's go ahead and I think we're ready for our imagery. I'm not sure. You know, maybe we can benefit from going a little bit more with certain, you know, inks on here. Maybe not, I don't know, but ready or not, here we come, okay? All right, so let's see if I have enough ink on my pad here. I don't think I do. Let's re-ink here. I should always re-ink this pad before starting these videos, but I don't know. I always think I have enough remaining on there from the previous time. But this ink is just so thick that anytime you use it, you're really utilizing quite a bit of it. I've been using more pigment inks over the last like 2 or 3 months than in my, you know, previous 25, I don't know, 30 years of stamping. Well, some pigment inks weren't around a really long time ago, but I've been mostly a dye-based ink person, so I'm learning about inks and how much to re-ink, just as much as anyone with a lot of this stuff here. A lot of you have used, certain types of techniques and whatnot much more than I have. So I've been learning a lot from you, suggestions on products and all kinds of things. Okay. Oh, I should have heat set this a little bit. See, I already forgot about that. So let's hope that transfers over nicely. It might not. I'm stamping kind of wet into wet, and this is kind of a mirrored surface. Yeah, it came out okay. I think I would have gotten a little bit of a cleaner impression. Had I heat set a little bit. We'll heat set down below, but that's not too bad. Okay, let me cover this up while I heat set. All right. I'm using my heat gun here more lately too. Starting to bow quite a bit. I don't want to have to fight it too much, so let's just go to about right there. I think it's fairly dry on the surface, that background ink that I laid down. This impression right here is still really quite wet. With that, I should fill in a little bit more around the sides with this image. I can stamp it again right here, and then again over here. Maybe I'll do that. Okay, that'll just take a few seconds. All right, so just overlap. I stamped it a little bit lower, to make that cove kind of continue on a little bit closer to us. I just need to ink up about 1 inch here, even though there's about a 1/2 inch there, but kind of ink up a good amount, because remember, when you take this, you're going to be overlapping a little bit into that previous impression so that you get a nice seamless blend of those two images, okay? All right, so coming together. Let's go with our main foreground image next. It's the Boulders with Lichen, just used in a cave scene yesterday. Okay, let's go about right like so. I'm kind of putting it at an angle just for a little bit of a, I don't know, visual movement, dynamics. When you have diagonals in a scene, it kind of adds a nice little kind of, I don't know, dynamic to a piece rather than having everything kind of just all balanced. Which I do, a lot of times, but sometimes it's fun to play around with your angles a little bit more. All right, so we have that. All right, created a little bit of foreground for the viewer to stand on. We have all this kind of busy action right in here. All right, so let me just get a little of that off. And let's go with the Mystical Waters. I don't think I'll be using the whole thing, and I want it to transition a little bit up here, so let's do this. Ink it up adequately, but then right up top here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of that ink. Okay, I'll remove some down here as well. But when we remove some of this ink off the top, maybe it will stamp out darker, and then it'll become lighter as it moves up into the distance like that. Usually it's darker in the foreground, lighter in the background. In a lot of instances. Okay, so let's do this right here. Let me mask off these boulders with lichen. And we'll stamp out this roughly about like so. I usually don't mask off something that's still really quite wet in the form of those boulders with lichen, but I think it'll be fine if I press into it. Just hopefully not a lot of the, a lot of the ink doesn't come off of it. All right, so there we have that. We still don't have the dynamic then that I'm going after, but that's where all the kind of the blending of tones will come in. I tell you what, I think we can use a little bit more texture up there. What do you think? Let's go like this, and let's go for another impression of it right up here, okay? Hopefully it stamps out even lighter up there. All right, I think we can go for another one. Yeah. Yeah, it kind of transitions off like that. Okay. Wipe off your thing, toss this out or flip it over, otherwise my hands really get quite messy in this process, my fingertips like this. That's all good fun, right? I used to teach a lot of in-person workshops, and sometimes, I don't know, you look for patterns and things like that, or I do. I don't actively think about that, but sometimes after a while it's like, the more inky some people get, it seems like their pieces came out, I don't know, a little bit more fluidly or whatever. I wouldn't say better or something like that. Maybe they were, though. But the people that were just kind of got into things, it seemed like, with a, no holds barred, inky fingers and inky area and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It tells me that they were kind of, they were really kind of engaged in what they were working on, right? I mean, it could be that some people are just, less tidy and whatnot, but just by and large, I thought, there's a little bit more of a fluidity to it. So that being said, stay nice and messy. All right, notice you see right here, I'm kind of toning in. This is where things kind of come together a little bit more. We had all that sloppy, white paint down there. All right. I don't really see my light rays up there too much anymore, but I don't know. I think they're at a little bit of a sense of dynamics. Like I said, I mean, I could wait for this to dry and then come into it in like another day and then go over it again. I don't want to do that, though. If I don't have to. If it really needs it, then maybe. All right, that's a lot of ink right there. All right, so I'm going to try to come in here and blend in some of these colors about like so. All right. Boy, that's really thick. Just inking that up here. There's just so much ink on this, so be a little bit careful about, kind of how much you apply. Kind of adding this down, just a nice light touch, with every tap I might be adding in another like 5% of gray or something like that. It doesn't have to be just straight black, okay? So you can build it up and add in more accordingly. Or, stop accordingly, when you get kind of the look you're going after. For me, I don't have something real definitive in mind as far as the look that I'm kind of going after. Because I'm not super familiar with this rainbow holographic. I've just been kind of doing a handful of experiments so far, so I think the first ones were a little bit more minimal. I'm getting a little bit more involved with more imagery, maybe, and whatnot, and what, we can do with it. Okay, kind of blending in some tones like that. See, I'm kind of going with those kind of striations in the water. I do have I'm going across this light beam here. but it's the only way to do it. I can't kind of avoid that light beam too much. I guess if I cut out a mask, I could have done that, but oh, I'm just gonna go right over the top of it. I might wait for this to, set up a little bit, to add a little bit more foreground or something. All right, so let's see. Let's go with a little bit of a kind of a vignette up top here. Let's really frame in this whole composition here. Every time I touch the side, I'm removing like all the ink, with my fingertip. Maybe I should. I wonder if I kind of touch like this, if it'll remove less. I think so. I think that our fingers kind of skin kind of remove a little bit more ink. All right, now, one of the things about this, I think I'm getting my tones about right, but what I'm doing is I have to look at that water there and see how much kind of that tone is being reflected down there. The holographic foil is being reflected. Oops. If you get too much of it, then, you just subdue it a little bit with the brilliance, okay? The brilliance white. So you blend in a little bit of black into white, and you're blending white into black in some of these areas. I remember when you do go over it, it's like you're really blocking out some of the, that paper. But see that paper like that? See, isn't that great? Just having it, it's a little bit more minimal. It's like a little corridor of it like that. I kind of like that, as opposed to this volume. This is a really loud piece right here, but see that right in there? Look at that. And then see where we've blocked it on the rock. So it's just kind of reflected up here. I could use a little bit more in the sky, though, I think. Okay, some more of this holographic color, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a clean cotton ball, and what I'll do is I'll just kind of dab up there with that. And what I'll do is I'll kind of see if I can remove a little bit of this, layering of color, of the pigmentings that have already been applied. Okay, let's see if I've done that up there. Okay, yeah, a little bit. See that? See that it's a little bit less opaque. And I mean, you can kind of just keep removing quite a bit, and then if you remove too much, then you just, ink right back up. So it's not like, it's a real circular process. Now this brilliance ink does get fairly, established on there, so you can't remove everything like you might be able to on foil at this point in time. I just removed a bunch of ink right there. But you can do, you can kind of manipulate this quite a bit. Okay, so we went black, and then white into black. Now you can go back to black again, right? Speaking of this circular pattern, it just depends on what's kind of, what's kind of happening within your scene every step of the way. You blend in a little bit of black with white, then that white becomes a little bit too much, so you blend a little bit in with the black again. And then you just keep doing that until you get kind of, the overall look you're going after. Or maybe the one that you like. Maybe that's a better kind of description. Because I don't know what this is going to look. I mean, this doesn't look like anything like maybe kind of a little bit of a notion that I had. I try not to have too strong of a notion when I'm doing something kind of unknown. I like to kind of keep it more along the lines of let's just start off here and just see what happens here. Okay. All right, I think that is pretty cool looking as far as that goes. Ooh, yeah. All right. So, where did my little tiny rocks go? They're around here somewhere. Here we go. Let's add on a little bit more texture. And then I want to add in some more foreground too down here. I was thinking about kind of some palm leaves or something of that sort. Or I don't know. Maybe that'll be too much. Okay. There's some different textural patterns back in here. Okay. There's some rocks on the the stamp itself, but I'm just adding in these tiny rocks to kind of build on that. Okay. I'm thinking about some larger versions of those rocks. I'm going to pause here and grab that. All right. Nothing too extreme in terms of scale here, but I'm going to have to put this one on at an angle. My block's kind of small. All right. So this is a little bit of a larger rock set, just to come into perspective a little bit more. You can go for multiple impressions, to get, kind of a lighter version of it in there as well. All right. Okay, I'm trying to decide on foreground subject matter. I'm thinking about like a bird or something like that, like an egret or something like that. Might be kind of interesting in here. I don't know. Something of nature. One of my go-tos are some reeds here. We can use some of that here. I've used this in different colors. I used some gold ink on it recently, so I'm just testing it out, to see it. And make sure I'm not going to be imprinting some gold out there. All right, see that? All right, and here I did a little bit of ink removal. Not too much of it because the brilliance sets up pretty fast. Okay. We can see some of that down here. See that where it's a little bit of the blade of the grass is showing a little bit. So when you're stamping wet into wet, if I stamped like dry into wet, sometimes it would remove that ink that's down there. But when you're stamping wet into wet, sometimes the side of the stamp comes in contact with the paper that doesn't have any ink on it in terms of the stamp, and it removes the ink. So you get a little bit more of a three-dimensional type of aspect of it. It didn't really happen over here because the background's probably really quite dry. Oh, look at that. It's all blue like that at that angle. We need like a Creature of the Black Lagoon or something like that in here, huh? I do have a Creature of the Black Lagoon stamp. I'm not going to stamp him in here. It's too busy back there. I need more of a silhouette. But if I planned around it, that would be kind of a cool image to use in here, maybe. All right. Let's see. Let me go and look at some different scene options. Gosh, this could even be like a rainforest deer like that. That would be kind of cool in here. I haven't really thought about something like that. Well, pygmy type of... Ooh, this might be interesting like this. The rider? She's a little bit too small for this right here, I think. I think something a little bit large. Here's another deer. I think a bird. Let me go take a look at some of my birds and try to decide on something. Alright, I have decided to go with this deer after all. I don't know, it could be... this could be somewhere in like Florida or in the Everglades or something like that. I don't know. It stood out to me, so I looked at a bunch of other images, and it just, I don't know, this one kind of stood out to me, even when I was looking at some other ones that seemed, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, my notion of them going in here seemed more fitting, but this one just, I think this is it. Yeah, we'll see how it comes out. I mean, you can stamp at it whatever you want. I probably wouldn't put a bear in here with the palm trees. This doesn't have to be in the tropics though. I mean, there's stuff in like I said, Florida or whatever. There's palm trees in certain areas. Okay, now I'm wiping off the feet a little bit down here because I think it's going to stamp out right down here. So I don't want too strong of an impression of the little surface area that I've designed in the stamp. So it's one of those types of things where I design a little bit more into the design that you don't have to use. But that's better than having, stamping or designing too little where you have to, you're leaving it up to the stamper to fill in information that you didn't include with the design. It's easier to kind of, leave off something than to, have to add it in. Okay, so again, I didn't heat set. Oh my god, that didn't come out dark enough. Let's see. Well, okay. I'll do this with my wolf, okay? I should have heat set. It's dark enough, though. Watch this. This is what I did with my wolf the other day. I just kind of filled it in. This is probably the same Q-tip right here, too. Alright, I'm just going to do some filling in here. Let me zoom in here a little bit so you can see. Here's my ghost deer. You don't have to go right up to the edge or anything like that. You're just kind of generally filling in a little bit, especially towards the center. I don't know. I didn't want to press too hard because I was, thinking about those horns. I should have pressed a little bit harder, or I should have put a little bit more ink on there. But I don't know. You can just kind of dab in like this and fill in. The entire border of it is filled in. So you're just going in here and just coloring it in. Like so. And if it isn't, solid on the kind of the very outside edge, don't worry about it. It looks like lighting is on it or something like that. Okay. All right. That worked out. You could even kind of control the amount of darkness on it to make it look a little bit more dimensional that way by having it a little bit lighter in some areas, a little bit darker. Okay, so that is what that looks like right there. I'll show you what I mean like that. See, like around on that side there, there's a little bit of light. And see that edge right there where it removed ink? So it kind of helps to define it a little bit like that. It's subtle. You wouldn't see it from like arm's distance like that. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. That sounds out pretty good. So that little kind of, that aspect of subtractive types of marks kind of comes into play. In this case, it's a subtractive mark within a positive mark. So you're adding and subtracting a little bit. So, I don't know. Stuff happens. You just kind of adjust and fill in. All right? All right. So, let's take a look here. And let me grab my white paint pen. If you're a viewer of this channel, I was getting black paint everywhere. It's like really wet. And there was like some on this when I was doing some scenes. I finally figured out I have all my pens, not the Artistro ones, but like the Meowsing one, in a cup, just like in a mug, like this right here. And I had one of my ballpoint gel pens open like that, and this was pointed down, and the gel from this had spilled. I was using that like for weeks, and there was a bunch of ink on the bottom of all my things that I was putting in there. I was getting it everywhere. It was like a sopping. And I thought it was the Brilliance ink. I thought it was the pigment ink pad. So, I don't know. I thought it was going nuts. Thinking, where did I thought I cleaned off my tip and stamp and whatever, And then I'd go on to a step like this, and I'd get paint all over me. Okay, so... Boy, that is such a dynamic paper. Look how gold it looks now. But now it's not gold at all, See, there's some gold right here at this angle. Look at that up in the sky, what that's doing. See how I kind of buffed out a little bit of color up there? All right, so anyways, this is the white paint pen. This type of paint pen is good in terms it is designed to be, you can even use this type of paint pen on glass. And I'll put a link to it down in the description and whatnot. So many people have asked me about it. I had no idea, so many people were kind of itching to have a, decent working, non-clogging pen, white paint pen, But that's the question I've probably got the most of is, what pen are you using there? More than any kind of thing, question about stamps or anything like that. Well, I guess this paper right here, a lot of people have asked me where I got the paper from. All right, so I'm adding some of these white little marks. So in a sense, this is kind of blocking out too, but it's blocking out very specifically, okay? So see there's little dots like that. And I'll add some of these. Now, I usually just add little dots, but I do have that mystical water pattern stamp, so I'll put some dots around some of the decorative elements of this right down in here. Okay, and we'll add some little highlights on these rocks as well. Capturing some of the light, okay? I don't add highlights where it's really dark, okay? I add highlights where it's light, right? Does that make sense? Because in the lighter areas, that's where you'd have kind of these reflective types of little details kind of happening. Alright, and I might add some little highlights on the tops of some of those rock impressions that I added in, stamped in. They're still quite wet, so kind of going into it, you're kind of removing some ink too, and sometimes. Alright, let's say this is night in here, and I'll add a couple little stars up here, like so. I'll go minimal. I don't know about minimal, but I won't add too much up there. This is such a dynamic surface. When I look at my camera screen, depending on the angle that you're looking at this too, it changes, I might look at it from over here and it's not showing those colors that you see on the camera right now, or I'll look at it from down below and it's showing, like right now I'm looking at it from an angle. Well, I'm looking at the camera screen and there's red up here, but when I'm looking at it here, it's just, the whole thing is just gold. That's one of the fun things about it. Alright, let me add in a couple of these little crystals. I've done a little bit of this, not on all of my pieces, but we'll just go with some of this glue. I'm just going to put a little dab of glue out here. I've gone way overboard with the amount of kind of crystals I've used on a couple pieces. So on this one, it'll represent me kind of holding back a touch. Okay. So crystals kind of represent specular light, which is light that's brighter than white. Okay. It's when there's like a kind of a glistening light on the surface and it's being reflected, almost like a mirror back to you. It's like, this case here, kind of reflecting that light back to you. This is white right there, but, the reflection off this pen, for example, is much brighter than that white right there. So specular light that's brighter than white. I learned about specular light in my, or we talked about it in my beginning photography class in college. I was in advanced photography in high school for years, but I don't know, I was just looking for an elective when I went to college, and I know we talked about different things. My college photographer was a crime photo person that worked for Los Angeles County, so that her job was to go and shoot, crime scenes. Is that kind of interesting? I would have thought they would have had an in-house, person taking those photos from like LAPD, but I guess, you want these photos pretty specific, so, we're talking about evidence, so that's what she did. She was probably a kind of like a, kind of more photography creative student, but, getting a job out there in photography, that's what she did. Okay. Let me add a couple little more ones in here. This is a little gem picker, a Marby gem picker. I probably don't need these. These are just fun little things like this to add. I don't know, maybe they're too much. I can always wipe some off if I don't like them. But, kind of little sparkly gems. I mean, the star of the show is still the paper, but let's see if we can even see some of those little gems in there. I don't know. I kind of made a little bit of a pattern of them kind of going down like that. But, the deer was just fine. I don't know if I can repair a deer like that using dye-based inks, but the pigment inks, it just goes on there just fine. All right, let's see if we can see some of those crystals. Yeah, you can see those crystals a little bit if I go like that. It depends what's being reflected back, but I don't know, can you see them in there? It's subtle, which is good, because I think if they stood out too much, it would be too much. But anyways, another fun piece for me. On this one right here, it was really, really sloppy in there. I think what came together is, after I stamped all the imagery, the toning here, and kind of adding in that black and then white and then black again, it got really sloppy. And if you look in here, it's not a real smooth application of it. Here's some white here, and it's smudged a lot of the blacks. I have grays in there everywhere, but when you have that paper like that, that rainbow type of kind of effect that's happening in there, that's the thing that grabs most of the attention. Everything else is kind of like, I don't know, it's somewhat subservient to that overall paper. So you won't, we don't focus in on, things like all this smudgy work that smudged my, mystical water image and all of that. There's certain things going on up here with the palms, some of those palms. You can see where, the centers of them didn't exactly stamp out, so you can see the rainbow right through them like that. But when you look at it like this, it doesn't really matter. It's just, I don't know, it's just fun stuff. Okay, so anyways, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, hope you hit the like button. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comment section. And hope you like, share, and subscribe.